Just to explain, I'm not a member of this select committee, but I'm just guesting here today from the DCMS select committee. I was going to ask you about your relationship with public service broadcasters, but I think actually you've pretty much covered that in questioning already and confirmed that that relationship, is an important one and strong, and that having a strong public service broadcasting ecosystem underpinning our creative industries and the broadcasting and streaming sector is really essential. And I think, is it fair in a one-word answer for me to characterise what you've said so far in that way? Yes or no? Adam?
Yes, but we must also have one eye on opportunities for the rest of the sector to be able to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ben?
100%.
Yeah,
and we've said that consistently.
And we've had these conversations before, so I think you've already said that. So having said that, let's link it to the issue of prominence and for public service. Now, obviously, if that ecosystem is important, then public service broadcasters and public service media has to thrive, and it can't be locked away in a dark cupboard and nobody can see it. So what is your view, both of you, as taking Ben first, about how the government should deal with this issue of prominence for public service media?
Well, there's been considerable debate on the subject over the last few years, and we've been anticipating proposals around prominence in the media bill for some time. And, Netflix has always been of the view that whilst we don't expect those proposals to affect us directly because we are not a gatekeeper to content, we're a service, we are broadly supportive of interventions which help to ensure the long-term sustainability of the public service broadcasters, because we believe they do have such an important role to play in the ecosystem, and they're part of the reason why we originally decided to make our home in the UK. And that position is really unchanged, and obviously it's important to say alongside of that those policy interventions should be proportionate, they should be flexible, they should be principles-based, etc. What we don't want to do is cut across all the investment and innovation around personalisation, around making sure that audiences get content that they truly want to watch. But I think that
that's the issue in a sense, though, isn't it, Ben? Because as I understand it, the government's not planning to ban the Netflix button, if you like, from your remote control. But the reality is the next generation of televisions don't even have channel changes on them. And when you turn the TV on, you don't even get to anything resembling electronic programming guide or anything or any site whatsoever of the BBC or ITV or S4C or Channel 4. And in fact, I suppose my point is this, if it's valuable and it has served as a really important foundation of our creative industries and our broadcasting sector, isn't that endangered if we just glibly allow this kind of technology to effectively, because these are proprietary devices that are now being sold to people rather than what we used to understand as a television, controlled by companies who want their product to be served up before anything else is seen. Isn't that essentially potentially a death knell for public service broadcasting if that's allowed to happen without intervention?
I don't believe that it will be a death knell, because I think when audiences want to watch programming, they are always able to find it. But we have consistently supported the PSBs in their call for on-demand prominence. I think what needs to happen next is for government to introduce and Parliament to pass principles-based legislation, hopefully in the media bill, and then I'm sure Ofcom will very capably devise a workable regime which balances all interests, and that's something that we look forward to working with them on.
So I've quite a lot of views on prominence. I think I can see the logic in it. You have prominence in the linear world for public service broadcasters on the EPG. So it follows that if we're supporting public service broadcasting moving into the on-demand world, you're going to have prominence for their on-demand services. The logic is clear. Questions though then come into, well, how do you do that and when? And so to a point about the death knell, perhaps in the future. At the moment, certainly the main public service broadcasters are prominent. 9 out of 10 platforms, they're there right at the top, certainly above a lot of COBA members. But perhaps in the future there will be problems, so I can see the need to sort of future-proof things going forward. What you've got to be careful of when you do that, and I think you yourself touched on it in a question in one of the previous sessions about is there any Welsh content on ITVX, is currently those services are not public service, with the exception of the BBC, they're not public service services. There's no remit mandate obligations on them to do X, Y, or Z, to show news, to have news prominent. So what you've got to do is to make sure that at the same time as giving that ITVX prominence, you've got to make sure that it actually shows public service content within the player prominently and using. And that is just mirroring what happens in the linear world, because we don't just say to a public service broadcaster, you must make news, or you must show news. We say you must show X amount of news in peak. And peak is basically prominence in the linear world. So
you'd support an in-principles-based legislation that would achieve this. And just finally, I think it is disappointing that Amazon Prime didn't come before the committee today, not least because they were happy to appear before the Scottish Affairs Select Committee, I noticed, last March. So have you had a chat with them, Adam, about why they wouldn't come in front of us today? They might have been interested in that anti-sport, pro-profit phrase that Ben had, because, of course, they've invested quite a lot in live sports, so presumably they're anti-profit. But, have you had any conversations with them? What have they got against the Welsh?
I'm not aware of their reasons for not appearing today. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much.